Dieudonne Kazzembe is a young refugee from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He came to the United States in 2014. Now, Dieudonne bounced between foster families until he met his forever family, the McGills, in Washington, D.C. in 2018. Dieudonne just graduated from high school as a salutatorian and will be attending Arizona State University on a full scholarship this fall. Dieudonne and his foster mom, Allison McGill, are with me today to discuss Dieudonne's journey to America and the McGill's journey in fostering him, which has culminated in a beautiful, expanded family unit. Dieudonne, Allison, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Hello, Brad.
How are you, Dieudonne? Now, you're from the Congo. How old were you when your parents died?
Well, I was just about 3.
And you have no recollection of them, I assume, right?
Not at all.
Unfortunately. Now, there was a war going on there during your childhood. Do you remember where you were, what was going on with the war?
Well, most of it I received from the stories I was told by my grandma, who I grew up with. It was between the government and rebels, usually call them militias. It was very bad. It was like a big violence that was going on, and it still does go on today. Civil homes were attacked by both rebels and the government. And so, I was part of the families that were affected with that form of violence.
Tell me about growing up with your grandparents and where you lived in the Congo.
So we lived in a small town. It's called Goma. So I moved with my grandma after my father died, who was the last one to die of the two. And so I lived with them for about a year and a half before we moved. And when the incident happened, we had to flee to Uganda. Going from Goma to Uganda is not actually a very long journey, but it took us a long time because we had to walk part of the way.
When you made it to Uganda, how old were you at that time?
It was about 5 and a half.
Do you have any recollection of any of the violence that occurred in the Congo that required you to go to Uganda?
Some of the things I can remember from memory, people fighting,
Guns?
But most of, yes, like with my own eyes, I witnessed it. I would ask, what's happening?
Right.
And then everything was told to me after, I grew up when I was about 11 and 12, and then everything was kind of narrated to me how it happened.
Right. So you made it to Uganda, and I assume walking on foot, you didn't get there in a few hours. You slept on the roadside. Where would you sleep at night when you walked from one country to another?
We would sleep under shelters, sometimes on the streets. It took us about 3 days, I would say.
Were there a lot of refugees, or were you there kind of by yourself traveling on the road from Congo to Uganda?
There was a lot of them.
There was a lot of them.
Yeah.
What about brothers and sisters?
So, yeah, I have one brother and one sister. They're both older than me. They came here with me and my uncle, who was the youngest of my grandma.
So when you made it to Uganda, where did you resettle?
We lived in a refugee camp. And then towards the end, before we left, the United Nations was able to pay for housing. So we lived in a little room in Kampala for about 4 years.
Talk about how the conditions were at the refugee camp.
From what I remember, everything was on a schedule. Everything was done by groups. We actually did live in the form of a group home, and we would get planned foods. We would eat at certain points, like pretty much everyone. The healthcare was pretty bad if someone got sick.
Did you go to school?
I went to school for, I would say, about 4 or 5 years before we left, because I started in 2009.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you when you came to America?
13.
Do you remember what was involved in coming to America, how you got chosen to come to America?
So it's actually a surprise, honestly. I never knew it would happen, and no one in my family thought it would. It was kind of like a surprise. We were told by the United Nations that we were lucky enough and we would go to the U.S., and I kind of didn't believe it.
And you went into the foster care system here in America?
Yes.
Was it scary coming to America? Were you excited? Do you remember what it was like coming on the plane?
It was nothing like I've ever experienced before. I had not been on a plane before then. That ride coming here is actually what kind of made me to decide what I wanted to do in the future, which is being a pilot, because I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Right. Now, Allison, obviously Dieudonne is with you now. What made you decide to take a refugee in? What inspired you to open up your home? You have a family, husband, your own children. What inspired you to say, I would like to take a refugee in?
It was 2016, and we just had Jack, who's turning 5 on Thursday. And he loved home. He kept talking about home. It was his favorite word. And it kind of haunted my husband and I because we had room in our home and our hearts for another child. So my husband did the research and found Lutheran social services in the capital area. We contacted them, got in their program, and became certified and licensed to foster refugees.
What was involved in getting certified?
It is certification to foster domestically or for domestic children or refugee children. And so we did a lot on trauma because any child, whether it's domestic or refugee, has experienced trauma if they're in a foster home.
Give me an example of some of the things they taught you.
How to de-escalate situations, what to look for. Our biggest thing with him is making him have fun because he studies too much.
Sure. What were you expecting, and how did the expectations and reality differ, or you're like, wow, this is perfect?
We knew we would get a teenager because that is what normally is the age range that's in the refugee system through Lutheran. So we had known the age, and we of course hoped for a family member, but honestly, if we could just provide a safe place for that young person to lay their head, if that's all that we did, then that would be enough too.
Now, you have to feed him, clothe him, you have to be his mother. Do you get any financial assistance for this, or this is just all out of your own pocket?
There is a stipend that is typical with fostering that we do get.
And does that cover all the expenses?
No.
Not at all, right? Not at all. Children are very expensive. What was it like the day before Dieudonne arrived? What did you tell your children to expect?
Well, Gavin was 4 months old, and Jack was 3, and we kept practicing his name because I was worried about saying it wrong. Jack had known he was going to get an older brother or sister, so he was prepared for this.
Were you nervous to bring in a teenager who could have been emotionally damaged, to introduce them to basically babies in your home, a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old?
We did know that there was a risk, and we did express that to Lutheran, knowing we have young kids.
Right.
And so they are an excellent organization in want to find the right fit. They knew Dio would be an excellent fit, and so they put us together.
We call you Dio? I can call you Dio too?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Call him Dio.
Okay, so Dio, you came when you were 13. How old are you now?
18.
You're 18. So you were in the United States for 5 years, and you got put into the McGill's house. How old were you?
16.
All right, so you were here 3 years, and I guess for lack of a better term, you bounced around from foster care home to foster care home until you had finally found your forever family. Tell me what it was like bouncing around from home to home to home.
They were different, as you know. People are different in general.
Right.
I lived in 3 homes before coming here, and the first one was a veteran, so he was a pretty strict guy. His point of views and like everything he did, the way he handled situations was different.
Then you went to another family, your second family. How was that?
This was my first year of high school, and the main problem there was that she lived a little far from where I went to school. I've moved to different areas, but I've been in the same school.
In high school, right. And then you were with this lady, but she was a far distance for how long?
They were all just about 11 to 12 months.
Right.
It all happened between school years, and that's why it was like 11 to 12 months.
Right. And then the third family is the McGills. Fourth family. Now, none of those people that you lived with, you never felt any sort of like parent-child bond. It was just more, they're giving you a place to live and they're feeding you. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was like.
Right. But now I understand with the McGills, Joe, at least to you, Dio, is not Joe or Mr. McGill. You're calling him Dad.
Yes.
How did that happen? Did it happen naturally? Did it happen over time?
I would say it was a mixture of both. It came naturally and then kind of had to develop over time. It just felt differently of how we connected. He treated me like his own son from day one. So subconsciously, I started treating him like a father to me.
Can you give me an example or two of things that he has done to treat you like a son?
We've done a lot of things together. I remember one time we fixed the couch together. He taught me a lot of stuff that I would need to know as a teenager. He's taught me how to cook. So he's taught me a lot of things.
Very nice. Now, Allison, Dio came from very traumatic childhood, and I'm talking to him, and he seems centered and grounded and calm. Is he really like this?
He's like this every day. We do keep an eye on, like I said, his studying and his achievements because we want to make sure he's having fun. That's an important part of life, but that's mainly all we deal with.
Now, you're graduated high school. You're the salutatorian. Tell me what that is.
Second in class.
The second out of how many kids?
Around 130.
So 130 kids. When you came here, did you speak English?
A little bit.
A little bit. So English was not your first language. You come here as a 13-year-old, you learn English, and not only do you learn English, but you excel, and you are the number 2 in your class. How do you explain this? How do you explain excelling over everybody else when they had such a head start on you?
Well, one thing I usually say is I just don't let my background pick my future. So what I usually say is that just tackle your dreams with perseverance and with determination as well. I mean, everyone has dreams, and the only way to get there is through working hard. I try doing that.
And you're now going to Arizona State University, is that correct?
Yes.
On a full scholarship. Talk about what you had to do to get a full scholarship. There's lots of people out there that would love to know how to navigate the scholarship game.
Most of it happened before getting to the senior year. I would say keeping your head in the game, researching, because I already had half of the scholarships I applied for noted down before I even started my senior year.
You speak with your family, your brothers who came, your uncle?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, where are they?
My older brother goes to University of Rochester.
And your uncle, where is he?
He's in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona.
And do you speak to any of your other family?
Yes, they're all out there in Arizona.
And they're all happy, adjusted? What are they doing out there in Arizona?
Well, my oldest sister is doing a nursing program. My uncle, unfortunately, has a disability with his hands, so he can't really work.
And I guess when you go out to Arizona, you'll be reunited with them, which will be very nice. Do you ever think about what it would be like if you didn't come to America?
Yeah, I actually do ask myself that question a lot more frequently.
Right.
Especially when I got all the scholarships, and then I just also remember the kids who stayed back home, how they came here, what life would be like for them. So sometimes I just feel like it's a little more than what I deserve, or more, a lot more, really.
Well, you had a terrible situation, and lots of people had horrible things happen to them around you, but God picked you to be here. And, you'll make a great life for yourself. You became number 2 in your high school. You're going to college on a full ride. In life, there is luck, but also sometimes you make your own luck. So you did both. So that's pretty amazing. Allison, how does somebody find out if they're interested in finding somebody like Dio to take in as a refugee?
We love Lutheran social services. Love them. Office, if that's not available in your city, the Office of Refugee Resettlement would also be a place to start.
Right. And finally, Dio, this is a show about achieving your American dream. You've only been in the United States for 5 years. Tell me what the American dream means to you, and tell me what those dreams are for you in the future.
Generally, the American dream to me is just being in a very peaceful environment. And with that also comes union. And I think I've had that for the last 5 years. I've experienced that. On a personal level, one of my dreams is being a pilot, and the other one is to be an author, write as many books as I can. I have set out my goal for 30 different books, and I only have one right now. So I have so much work to do.
Only one.
I have one last question for you before I let you leave. It's really a question about politics. Tell me what you think about the politics of America today, and if you were able to sit down with Donald Trump even for 60 seconds, what would you tell him?
I would say put yourself in someone else's shoes. No one was born who they are at the moment. I wasn't born the way I am. I wasn't born a salutatorian or an author. I mean, I was a miserable kid. So you can't ever measure what a kid would ever do in their lifetime. It really all depends on the person, what you give them, and what they produce out of what you give them.
Yeah. I think that's really well said. Dio, I don't think you're going to be an airplane pilot. I think you're going to own the whole airline. You're such a wonderful, well-spoken, Well, I'm just sitting here saying to myself, I can't believe this kid lived through what he lived and is able to be so eloquent in a language he didn't grow up in and be so grounded. It's amazing. We want more of you, Dio. More. Trust me, we do. All right, thank you for coming on, and best of luck, and congratulations on all your scholarships, and we wish you all the best of luck. And Allison, what a wonderful thing you did. And I wish there was more of you out there as well.
Well, I gained another son out of it.
Yes. Thank you both for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Thank you. Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.